Y bienvenidos al sabor de mi cocina. Bueno, en esta ocasión, en lugar de compartir una receta, me gustaría compartir con ustedes un evento que sucedió en Tucson. Es parte de Tucson Meet Yourself, del festival, y han estado haciendo eventos todos los meses para compartir diferentes secciones de telas, de cocina que existen aquí en Tucson, Arizona. Entonces, en esta ocasión vine a esta presentación que están promoviendo este chico que tiene un blog que se llama El Elefante y el Águila, o sea, el elefante, the elephant and the eagle. Y es una combinación de comida indo-americana que es muy bueno, entonces me gustaría compartirlo con ustedes. Espero que les guste.
So I'm going to let Billy talk for a few minutes about his story, and then he's going to tell us what he's cooking. He has samples for all of us.
Hello, you guys hear me all right? Good, good. First of all, I want to say, wow, holy crap, there's a lot of people here. Seriously. No, but I appreciate all of you coming. It really is an honor to work with Tucson Meet Yourself and Borderlands Brewery in this amazing event and series that Tucson Meet Yourself and Dr. Alvarez has started. It's absolutely wonderful. So if we can all get a round of applause for them, please. My name is Billy Hazra, and I am the creator of the Elephant and the Eagle. I know you guys have a lot of questions, and immediately I know what you're thinking. This kid's name is not Billy. His real name cannot be Billy, and you're right, it is not Billy, and I'll address that in a little bit. So basically what I'm going to do is cook and talk. I'm just flipping, I'm not even cooking at this point, but it's really easy. So I'll tell you a little story about my life. It starts with my parents. My parents were born and raised in India, and my mom is the youngest of 5. She grew up in a place called Purulia. She had a pretty okay upbringing, I would say, but you know, it was different from my dad because he grew up in a very poor village. He had to work very hard his whole life to get out of that village, and I'm not really sure how they met. They never really told me. It doesn't even make sense to me. They're like polar opposites. But they managed to get an arranged marriage in their early 20s, and very soon after that they had their first child. But unfortunately their first child died of a heart condition 8 months later. So this left them absolutely devastated, understandably. So they needed a change. They needed to get out of there. They wanted, this is just, people can't stay in a place where that much trauma has happened, right? So they moved to the United States. My father at the time was doing very well. He graduated from one of the top universities, engineering universities in India, so he had a lot of leeway to get here. And he moved to Memphis, Tennessee, both of them. They had my brother, Bobby Hazra. I'm not really sure if he's here or not. Probably ran away. There he is, right back there, Bobby Hazra, my brother. And 5 years later, they moved to Phoenix, Arizona. Now, from some of the comments that I've heard today, I don't really feel bad saying this, but growing up in Phoenix really sucks. I'm not gonna lie. Especially if you feel like you're an outcast, an outsider. And that was really hard. And this is where my name comes in. My nickname is Billy, but my real name is actually Tonoi. And so growing up, I immediately had this sense of 2 identities, right off the bat. And Tonoi would be the kid who would stay at home, and he would learn all sorts of rituals that he may or may not want to learn. And he would not really be able to do anything. My parents were very, very protective, so I didn't really get to go out much. But on the positive side, I did get to experience a lot of food. A lot of flavors, a lot of herbs, a lot of vegetables, meats that I never even heard of. And that was an amazing experience for me. So as I grew up and as I became this Billy character, I would go to school, I would make friends, I would learn about Christmas music, which was kind of weird, I'm not really into it. And then I would learn about those silly little games that you play with your hands. What is that? Down by the bank of the hanky-panky, something like that. But then I would sort of grow this like culture, but 2 different cultures. One was my American self and one was my Indian self. And so I went through that about 18 years of my life. I finally graduated high school. I got accepted in the University of Arizona, and I went. And as soon as I got here, it was like so much freedom. But that's not really being, that's not oriented toward my cultural backgrounds. I feel like any student who moves out of the house and gets into a situation where they finally have so much freedom, they just go crazy, right? But not only did I have the freedom to do whatever I want, I had the freedom to think about whatever I wanted. And that latter concept I thought was going to be really cool. But very quickly I found out that thinking about whatever you want gives you a headache very, very fast. Because you think about questions like, who am I, what am I doing here, and what the hell am I going to do with my life? So I sort of went through this philosophical journey of sorts, trying to seek out that truth. But I only did it in terms of career path. If you look at my undergraduate career, I started out as an undecided. I then changed to physiology with the influence of my parents. I really hated that. And then I ended up going to sociology. But I still wasn't fulfilled. I didn't feel that something was off. So this is where some of my mentors come in, where my brother comes in, my sister-in-law, and all the people that I met in Tucson, my friends, family, so on and so forth. And then this idea that food has been very, very close to me throughout my life. Growing up as Bengali Indian, you sort of, everything is food-centered. Anything that you go to, whether it be a festival, whether it be some sort of ritual that you're doing, it's all food-centered. Even birthdays. Your first birthday, you sit down, you have this thing called payesh and like 6 other things, fish heads, whatever. I didn't really like it, but it was an interesting experience, and I found that out. And throughout my life, I found that I was very interested in food as well. Like when I was growing up, I would always, you know, sort of stand on my tippy toes and try and look over the counter just to see what my mom was cooking. And I would do that for hours. I would cook in high school a little bit, but then when I got into college, I started cooking a lot more, almost every night, every day. And my brother and my sister-in-law were able to gain the benefits of my labor. They would come over every day and have some food of mine. But then I started becoming more involved with food. I realized that I actually wanted to do this the rest of my life. And it's because that the fact that I started thinking of food as sort of a bridge. It's a bridge between who I was at home and what I became outside of it. And that concept was very profound to me. It's sort of a link to your past and present, right? I can probably ask each and every one of you, and I've talked to you one-on-one, and ask you if you have a memory of eating a certain dish when you were a kid. And if you eat that dish right now, you gain those memories, you relive that experience, right? And that's so true for everyone. It's not just bicultural people, it's true for everyone. So that's really why I went into food, and I finally made this concept called the elephant and the eagle. It has a few layers. One of them is, it is me. The elephant and the eagle, the elephant represents Donoi, Billy. Donoi being my Bengali self and Billy being the eagle, my American self. And it merges the two together. Because when I was little, I always thought they were very distinct individuals. But later I realized that there were just two parts to my greater whole. And it kind of snowballed after that. Then the next part to the elephant and the eagle is that it's a symbol for people who love fusion foods. Not fusion foods in the sense of on the border. We've all heard of on the border, right? I can go on and on about on the border and how much I hate on the border. Because really, it took a crap on American food and Mexican food all together. Fusion food, I don't think of it like that. Fusion food, I think of the merging of two cultures, the merging of the origin of food. That's how I think of fusion food. So what I do on my blog is I tell stories of when I was a kid, whether it be from my travels, my experiences as a child, or whatever else I went through my journey as. But I sort of tell this story about where the food comes from, why it pairs well together. and I write about it. And the Elephant and the Eagle, the cool thing about it is I can do whatever I want with it. And pretty soon, I'm excited to say that we just started our catering business, and we're gonna, in hopefully the next few months, open up a food truck as well. So, yeah, thank you. So all of the information is there. I would hugely appreciate you following my Facebook page, my Twitter. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, email me. You can obviously come up to me and talk to me afterwards as well. But yeah, we have a lot of plans and a lot of exciting events that we're trying to do. In terms of pairing, let me tell you a little bit about what I'm cooking right now. I have two things. One of them is actually already on my blog. It's called Rainy Day in My Sewer. And basically that's an orange lentil soup with onions, tomatoes, cilantro, ginger, and garlic. And it's paired with these homemade croutons with Italian seasoning and olive oil. And the second thing that I'm cooking here is I call it a lamb keema slider. So in the actual ground lamb, we have cumin, this spice called garam masala, turmeric, salt, onions, cilantro, lemon juice, a little bit of ginger, some more garlic paste, and then we're going to put it on a French baguette with spinach, and I have a aioli that I made that's I like to call a maple fire aioli. It's maple sauce, sriracha, and a little bit of mayonnaise to make the aioli. And so all of these items that we have today pair very well with two specific beers here at Borderland Brewery. Yes, one is the hibiscus and the other is the horchata. So if you want to really get a nice pairing, get those two and you'll be in heaven, no joke. Other than that, I'm just going to finish up cooking. I'm almost done and I'm going to serve all of you, so enjoy.
I really feel like a proud mama in a way today because Billy has been one of our volunteers at Tucson Meet Yourself. His brother Bobby has been a faithful student of folklore, and it's just so wonderful to see that we have all these treasures of knowledge, of cultural knowledge, just sitting there, the next person, the most ordinary ways, and of course that's what we celebrate. We celebrate the ordinary. We are the artists of the everyday, right? And so to hear Billy with such incredible dedication and elegance describe his vision for his food and his attachment to wanting to share it with people from such a deep spiritual place, it really is very moving. And so I'm super excited. What has been the reaction of people to your blog? Are you getting people commenting and following?
Well, mostly it's like all the family members that have seen my blog, like from India, and they're always like, oh my god, this is so amazing, and then I look at my Facebook page and it's like 50 likes. I'm like, thanks, that's like all of my family.
I think you're going to add a few likes here tonight. That's fantastic. I like the names that you chose for the different things and the combinations. Now, is there a mayonnaise in Indian cooking, in Bengali cooking, or is this a pure American craft invention?
This is an American craft invention. You usually don't pair, I guess, sweeter things with Indian cooking at times. Mostly it's just spice on spice on spice. So I figured, why not put a little bit of sweetness into the aioli, and it pairs really well. I had it last night. It was awesome.
That's great. This is so generous of Billy to bring the food to us. He's brought all the ingredients on his own and to share with everybody. So it's so wonderful and extraordinary. I see him getting ready now. You put a little bit of leaf. That's spinach,
Baby spinach,
just to give it that earthy taste. And he has samples. I think that what we're going to do is, does anybody have any questions for Billy? Do we have any questions or comments from anybody in the audience? This is welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, I just wondered what your favorite traditional dish is from your family, and if you work with that in a fusion kind of way at all.
This is a loaded question.
I think growing up, I was really into, in terms of like bread, I was really into luchi. I don't know if you know what that is. They're sort of like fried airbags. So they're like the most unhealthiest things that you can eat. But I remember as a kid, my stomach was bottomless, so I'd eat like 40 of them, and then I'd feel really sick afterwards, of course. But definitely luchi, and my mom, she's an amazing cook, and she always makes kachiri mangsho. It's like goat meat, but it's like instead of a liquid gravy, it's thicker. And those two pairings are most likely my favorite thing. I'm not a huge fan of rice. I think I ate it too much as a kid. So yeah, definitely that.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? There's a question there.
Now, first of all, forgive my cultural ignorance, but can you explain the difference between a Bengali cultural reference versus to maybe a greater East Indian? What makes Bengali Bengal?
I guess there's a lot of things that do. India is interesting in the fact that there are so many different dialects and so many different subcultures that sometimes they feel like it feels like it's melding together. But basically, based on the region, I'm from West Bengal, and the types of food. I don't know how to explain it. Like, I guess Bengali food is more based on rice. It's more liquidy, and there's like instead of having fried, which would be, and fish, of course. Yeah, fish, and in particular, fish heads. So, but yeah, I guess that's really the only explanation I can give you.
Well, I think that we're getting ready to taste, and I think when we taste, we should then continue to be engaged with Billy, asking him questions, telling him what we think of the food, and that sort of a commentary. I think that feedback is probably very helpful at this stage in your development, in your career.
Perfect.
Wonderful. And we get to taste the soup too?
Yes, you do.
Yes.
Soup is paired with croutons. They're kind of like bread. Croutons are softer.
All right. We're seeing the artist at work. You know, at Tucson Meet Yourself, I don't know how many of you know, but we do have a tent that is a food demonstration. We call it Culture Kitchen. The coordinator of that for last year and this year is here, Priscilla Mendenhall. Last year we had the entire tent featuring refugee women who share their dishes, and we are putting a lot of those stories about refugee women in our Tucson Meet Yourself related Griffith archives. So you can look that up, and we're going to be putting that prominently on our website, which is getting rebuilt right now. But this year we're going to be having even a more extensive.
Yeah, I just have to, see, the thing about YouTube is you can't just put a recipe on there. You have to sort of have your own personality and persona, and even if it's not real, you have to make a little character, and then people sort of start to enjoy and like it, and you start to snowball from there. So yes and no. I think at this point in time, I haven't had the time to do it, but yes, it is a possibility.
Have you been participating in checking out the food truck community here in Tucson?
Yeah, of course. We always go to food truck roundup events, and like I said, we're trying to get a food truck of ourselves, so we have to taste what everyone else is tasting. We are a bit unique in what we do. I don't think there is a food truck that is quite like ours that does sort of Indo-American fusion foods. So we're lucky in that respect.
That's great. Well, just the fact that you're calling this little one sliders, it immediately piques the attention, right? All right, I think we're getting ready. How do you want to do it? You want to invite people just to come?